Nirvana's first ever recording session took place on January 23, 1988. Nirvana's lineup at the time consisted of Kurt Cobain, Krist Novoselic, and Dale Crover on the drums. The session has come to be known as the Dale Demo Session. I've interviewed both Jack Endino and Dale Crover, and I've asked them each about this Dale Demo Session. I also did an interview with Bruce Pavitt, the co-founder of Nirvana's first label Sub Pop, and asked him about his thoughts of the demo. I'm going to show you those clips here in this video. All the interviews I do, all the videos I make are 100% DIY. Thanks for watching. The first song you guys recorded, if I remember correctly, was If You Must?
Yes.
From what I've read, apparently Kurt eventually ended up not liking that particular song. Do you know why he felt that way?
Yes, I think I do, because I think he was a little self-conscious about not being perceived as too metal or too heavy, because I think really in his heart he wanted to do something a little more pop, melodic. And If You Must is a pretty heavy song. And, possibly, the influence of having the Melvins drummer in your band would make you want to write some big fat riffs, which may have contributed to his songwriting in some way.
Your relationship started essentially with a phone call from Kurt. Is this correct?
Correct. Yes. Just like any other band, he just called the studio, asked for me, and said, hey, we want to record some songs. We only have enough money for a day. When can you get us in? And he mentioned that he was playing with Dale Crover, who was going to help out on the session. I figured, all right, if this guy's good enough to be playing with the Melvins drummer, he's got to be the real deal, because I was already a big fan of the Melvins. So yeah, we booked the session January 23rd, 1988. And they came in with Dale drumming, and they didn't have a name for the band. He just told me to put it down as Kurt Cobain. And they did 10 songs in 3 or 4 hours, all live. He did all the vocals afterwards in one take. And probably between 3 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. we mixed all of it down, mixed, if you want to call it mixing. It was just an 8-track recording. I banged out a quick rough mix for them, and they went off and played a show in Tacoma that night with Dale, which at the Community World Theater in Tacoma, which I believe, I've looked into this, and it was the only show, well, Dale said it was the only show that he actually played with them during that time period. Because later, he did a tour with them, actually, but it was like a couple of years later.
So just a general question about the Dale Demo Session. They came around noontime at Reciprocal Recordings, and they were only there for, X amount of hours, because then they had to go to the Community World Theater in Tacoma that night for a show.
Correct.
I think you mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking now that Kurt recorded all his vocals afterwards, as in, did they do an instrumental first?
Correct. They did all the songs instrumentally, top to bottom, 10 songs in a row. And then, it's pretty impossible with a bunch of people standing in a room with guitars and drums to get keeper vocals. For one thing, you're concentrating on your vocal or you're concentrating on your guitar, and it's very hard, unless you're very, very good at this, it's hard to get the best possible take on the guitar and the best take on the vocal at the same time, unless you're a really seasoned player, which he was not. Even for the next year, most of his shows, his singing suffered somewhat because he wasn't used to playing and singing at the same time. He just hadn't played enough shows. At that point, I don't know if he'd played any shows, maybe 2 or 3. And the other thing is that if you're standing in a room playing guitar next to a drummer, the vocal mic is going to pick up way too much drums. So it's pretty standard to have maybe a guide vocal where you have a mic out there and you sort of sing a few verses, or you just call out the cues to the band, like, hey, here's the verse, here's the chorus, okay, we're going to the solo now. And then you go back later and you do the real vocals in a nice silent room with loud headphones and a good microphone and so forth under, better conditions, really, where you can actually get a usable vocal recording. So, like most of the bands I did at that period, and still to this day, I do a lot of bands where the band sets up and we isolate the instruments as much as we can, but they bang it out live. And then we do the vocals afterwards. And the other thing is vocals can take minutes or days. It really depends on the singer.
Yeah.
How many punch-ins are you going to need to do? And Kurt was one of those, 1 or 2 takes and it's done. And I think we did most of those vocals in one take. He just went from song to song. Like there was one or two where he had to stop and think about the words for a minute. So, okay, wait a minute, let me make sure because again, all they'd done is rehearse at that point. I don't think they played live very many shows at all. The fact that he had the words memorized is impressive in itself. He probably didn't have all of them memorized. I don't really remember because I couldn't see what he was doing out in the room there, whether he had a lot of paper with him or what. And nor, I don't really remember that exactly. But I do remember he did it very quickly. And if we did more than one take on anything, I don't remember it. It's possible we did. But in any case, after about, maybe an hour of setup and 2 or 3 hours of recording, the 10 songs were recorded, and I had to just mix it quickly so they could walk out the door with a cassette. Yeah, so that was the session that yielded anything Nirvana that has Dale Crover on it that's not live is from that session as far as I know. If You Must never got released officially until the box set. Yeah, I don't know. Any artist is like that. I mean, they write things and then they change their mind, They go, well, that's not really the direction I want to be known for. Let's do this other thing instead. So that's all it was. It was an early song, I think.
Yeah.
There were certain songs like that one, like Big Long Now, which was a song we recorded during the Bleach session. I remember that one. Kurt said, oh, there's already enough slow, heavy songs on Bleach. Let's leave that one off. So I saved it, and that got used on Incesticide. There were 2 songs that ended up being remixed and put on the Bleach record later.
Do you remember which songs those were?
I don't. You can find that information easily enough. One is Paper Cuts. One is Floyd the Barber. So see, I do remember. Paper Cuts, I think Paper Cuts, Floyd the Barber, and I think there was one more song that was used as a bonus track on some versions of Bleach that is also from the Dale session. It's a little short one. Huh?
Was it Downer?
It might be Downer, it might be Beeswax. I can never remember which one it is. But it got stuck on the end of some of the versions of Bleach. Mm-hmm. And then the other songs ended up on Incesticide, possibly including Downer. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Downer is on both the Bleach Extended and Incesticide.
Yes, and the final song, the 10th song, was a sort of truncated version of a song called Pen Cap Chew, which only exists as a verse, a chorus, and a second verse on the recording because the tape ran out. Mm-hmm. And we ended up fading it after the first chorus, I think. And that got used on the box set much later. So that was my first session with Nirvana.
And I wanted to ask you specifically actually about Pen Cap Chew. I'm glad you brought that up. So basically, as you were saying, the tape for that song ran out, so you guys didn't have a full recording of it. So you kind of had to put the fade at the end in order to make the song, I guess, salvageable.
It's like half a song now. It's like one verse and one chorus and a fade.
Yeah. So was there any other Nirvana song that essentially, for lack of a better term, like were you able to kind of polish up anything else Nirvana related?
There was, I think there was something on the live Bleach thing where I took a bass DI and reamped it through my SVT rig because something like I had the direct signal, but I didn't have the mic signal at one point in the song. And Krist was using a distorted bass. And so I said, well, I got the direct signal. I can recreate the distorted bass sound here where the mic crapped out. But something like that. But that's I didn't have to re-record anything or fly anything around. No, I mean, and remember back when I was doing this stuff, we didn't have Pro Tools or any of that digital stuff. What you had was what you had. I didn't start getting heavily into doing things in the digital multi-track world until around the turn of the century, shall we say.
So as I mentioned, I went to Aberdeen about a year ago. I went to Seattle the same trip, and I spoke with Jack Endino on that trip. And he discussed with me that the reason he initially agreed to record Nirvana was because of their connection with you. Right? He saw that, the Melvins drummer Dale was in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kurt basically cold called him, But the studio had, they had an ad in the local music magazine, The Rocket. They had an ad in there with a phone number, and anybody could go record there. But I think, yeah, because Kurt called and said, "Oh, the drummer from the Melvins is playing with us," then they're like, "Oh, okay," and they got time right away. So, and at that studio, I think maybe because that Soundgarden had recorded there is why we knew about it and Kurt knew about it. So, I think he probably figured like, oh, if they know about Soundgarden and recorded them, then that'll be perfect for us or whatever, So yeah, good thing he said yes, and then Jack liked it right away. I mean, he was really impressed and I think immediately told Sub Pop people about it because they had called like literally the next day and were like, or somebody had called just to say like, oh, hey, like we're interested in this already. So funny,
cool. That's really cool. So what was the recording like? From what I understand, you guys had like 5 hours or something really tight to get all those songs done.
Yeah, because we had a gig that night in Tacoma and we had to get to it. So we tried to cram it all in. And I mean, I listened to some of those songs and it's like, I can tell that I'm speeding up really badly, but it was just a demo, I mean, it was a demo so they could like get gigs and also to find a drummer. They knew that I wasn't going to stick around, so, a demo to get a drummer and they got a record deal instead.
That's really cool.
But I mean, and also I can remember too, like part of the reason I'm speeding up so badly is because, Seattle, even back then, was known for its super strong coffee. And we were like drinking like an immense amount of coffee and also eating chocolate covered espresso beans and just trying to get all the songs done in one take. And I was jacked.
Yeah, I could imagine. And you had the adrenaline of having to get out of there quickly, right?
Right. So,
and I walked by the studio. Like, I mean, it was locked up, so I couldn't go inside and everything. But I walked by where Reciprocal used to be. That's such a small building.
Yeah, it's not that big. It's big enough, but it's not that big of a studio.
I interviewed Bruce Pavitt recently. Bruce was saying that because Jason Everman paid for the record, this record is arguably the most profitable record in history because Sub Pop paid $0 for it, and they sold 2 million copies.
Yeah.
To compensate for the paying of the record, they put a giant poster of Jason Everman in some of the original Bleach vinyls.
So, that's awesome. And then, he doesn't even play on the record.
Yeah. So going back to the very beginning of your relationship with Nirvana, from what I understand, when Jonathan Pondman first showed you the Dale demo, you weren't really that impressed by it. What was your initial reaction to that demo?
My initial reaction was that I thought it sounded good, that Kurt had a great voice, but the songwriting was a little immature. That was my take. And I still feel that in reviewing their first album, Bleach, I'd say the same thing. There are a couple of classic tracks on there. I think Blue and About a Girl in particular really stand the test of time. But to me, the real star of that album is actually the producer, Jack Endino, because he created a record that just grabbed people with its essentially with its vibe and its presence. And he recorded for $600. So to me, Jack's the real genius behind that album. Kurt had a great voice, but the amazing thing about working with Nirvana is watching them grow and develop and get better and better and better. And that was an amazing thing to experience.